All right. Hello, everybody. This is Yelena Subasic with Massey Consulting. Sorry for being a few minutes late. We were just trying to get the screen set up, but I hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, so that's always exciting. And before we get started today for our July CloudBytes, which is smart rules inside of Sage Intacct, just so you all know, as I always say, please know that feel free to type in any questions that you might have during the presentation. In the GoToWebinar screen to the right of your screen, you should have a little chat box. So at any time during the presentation, if you have a question, type it in and we'll address all of those towards the end. Again, thanks everybody for attending, and I will hand this off to Philip Massey.
All right. Thank you, Yelena. I appreciate that. So just as a quick check, Yelena, you can hear me, correct?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. And you can see my screen?
Yep.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Would hate to start the presentation out with you not hearing me or seeing me. So appreciate your time today. Always wonderful to have a big group like this sitting in on one of these presentations. Again, we do these CloudBytes every month. Every month is a different topic. Every month is a new chance, a new opportunity to learn, and we are excited to bring these to you. This month is especially nice because we're going to talk about this concept of smart rules and a little bit about smart events. And those are some of the most underutilized concepts or capabilities within the Sage Intacct system. Everyone has these. Everyone has access to smart rules. Everyone has access to smart events, and you really can do some very nice things with them. So today we're going to concentrate on smart rules, but I'll talk a little bit about smart events as well, and maybe also kind of tie it in and give you a few ideas of where these things can be used and how they can be useful within an organization. So that's our goal for today. First, a little bit of housekeeping. If you do have a question, we will be monitoring the chat window. So if you want to toss it into the chat window there, that would be great. And we can address them as we go if anything comes up. Or if you want to save them until the end, I will leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A as well. So I want this to be interactive. If you see something that you don't quite get or understand, please feel free to ask the question. Don't be shy. All right. So with that, let's jump in. Let's talk a little bit first about Massey Consulting. Now, most of you guys know us, but we do have a few folks that are a little bit less familiar with us. Founded in 2002 in Raleigh, and still today in the Raleigh, NC area, servicing most of the Southeast as well as having customers across the U.S. We have them in California. We acquired a customer in California, in Hawaii, in fact, a couple of months ago. So I'm really pushing for that on-site visit with them at some point. Just haven't gotten it yet. And we do also service a few customers in Canada and in Australia. So still based out of Raleigh, but we cover a large area. We are comprised of CPAs and accountants. That's all we are, is accountants and CPAs. And you can see here we've been Premier Partners, President's Club members, Gold Partners, etc. We've really focused on working in the accounting software arena, and of course one of those main areas is with the Sage Intacct solution. Okay. So that's a little bit about who we are and why we're here giving this chat. So objectives for today. And I see I have an offer for someone who wants to go to Hawaii with me if we need a customer reference or anything of that nature. So I appreciate that. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for volunteering. So today we're going to cover smart rules. And again, we're mainly going to focus on smart rules in the presentation, but I will give you some tips on the event concept as well. So we're going to talk about what a smart rule is. We're going to talk about smart rule errors and warnings, triggers, conditions, condition logic, and actions. And if there's enough time at the end, I may even jump over into a Sage Intacct instance and kind of walk through a couple of things with you as well. Okay. So my objective for this presentation, first of all, is that you become familiar with smart rules and smart events. What you're going to see as we go through this is that Sage Intacct does a lot to try to lessen the burden of a financial person having to learn code in order to implement smart rules and make the system do certain things. So while this isn't all about code, there definitely is some code-like quality to how you will set up the smart rule. I mention that because I do not expect, and I wanted to set your expectations, that at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to go out and create all the smart rules and smart events and just go willy-nilly inside your system doing anything and everything that you wanted to do with them. It would take more than an hour or 45 minutes to go through and get you to that point where you would have that level of confidence. But what I do want you to do is to be able to say, you know what, I'd love to have an X inside of Sage Intacct. I'd love to have the ability to have a checksum total, for example, in certain places. That would be great. And then if I don't match that checksum total, then when I go to post this transaction, don't let me post it. So I want you to recognize where some of these things that you may think, gosh, I wish I had inside of Sage Intacct can really be accomplished using a smart rule or a smart event. And then ideally, probably reach out to us, get a little bit of guidance, get a little bit of help with it, but then we will, as always, teach you how to do this so that maybe on your second or your third smart rule, you're a lot more capable of creating a smart rule yourself. And in fact, for anyone who attends this presentation, so Yellen, let's make sure we keep the names on this, I'll be willing to make an offer that we will give you some free time, reasonable amount of free time to help craft and create your first smart rule with you. That's just as a thank you for attending this presentation. So, okay. So that's where we're going to get. So what are smart rules? I want you to look at the second bullet point on this screen. A smart rule is Sage Intacct terminology for a data validation rule. Okay. Smart rules can be run when records are added, modified, or deleted from an object. Only in post mode, however. Now there is an asterisk there for draft, and sometimes we have run into situations where saving a transaction, for example, in draft mode and the smart rule fires, and it shouldn't, because you are, after all, in draft mode. If we run into one of those cases, then we need to create a support ticket basically for that. But so a smart rule, at its simplest form, is a data validation rule that you can utilize inside of Sage Intacct to say, if this doesn't equal this, or this doesn't jive with this, then don't let me commit this transaction or this record, right? One of the most common examples that we give within Smart Rules is that, if you all are familiar, out of the box, the AP bill screen in Sage Intacct does not have a bill total field on it. You enter in the line items down at the bottom and you get a total for the bill at the bottom. But what happens if you miss a line? What happens if you transpose numbers? Nothing's going to catch that, right? Unless you visually catch it looking at the bill, looking at the screen. And if you have a lot of distributions, you quite simply may miss it. So what we've done in cases with clients is we've gone in and we've put a field, a custom field, on the AP bill screen for a bill total. And then we have a smart event that runs when you click the post button, and that smart event calls a smart rule. And that smart rule says that if the bill total doesn't match the distributions total at the bottom, give you an error message and do not let you proceed. So you've said the bill is going to be 1584.19, and down at the bottom your totals are 1548.19. You've transposed a number. That smart rule would fire based off the smart event of trying to post that. The smart rule would fire, would check the two numbers, and would throw up a warning message that says, no, these numbers don't match. You cannot post this transaction, right? So that's an example of a smart rule. You're checking two fields on an AP bill entry screen to make sure that they match. You're validating your data, right? So you can do that on any of the objects within the Sage Intacct solution. So there's four parts, four components to every smart rule. So you want an event type. Is this going to be an error or a warning? So an error is going to be something more severe. You can kind of guess these things. An error is going to be more severe, but an error is going to stop you from proceeding. A warning is going to be less severe and would allow you to continue with the record. Let's say you had a validation field on the AP bill. I'm going to stick with AP bills because that's pretty common. Let's say you had a validation field on the AP bill at the header where you created a custom field called department, and you wanted people to put in that department, and everything on that bill underneath really should belong to that same department, but you don't want to restrict folks to that. So you then come in and give it a warning to say, that may give you a pop-up that says, warning, you've coded different departments on the line items than what you put at the header. Please be sure you want to proceed, okay, or cancel, right? Event triggers, again, add, set, and delete. So you have to do something inside Sage Intacct in order for a smart rule to fire. Smart rules cannot be scheduled. You can't have one that says, I want this smart rule to run every day and check so-and-so. I want it to run every day at 7 a.m. Can't do that, right? I mean, besides 7 a.m. being way early in the morning, right? You can't have it run based off a timer. Conditions. True if the data passes, false if it fails, right? So you got the conditions in there. And then actions. So what kind of action do you want to take? What's your text that you want to display? What do you want the system to do based on the condition or the validation of that data? So there's those four components to a smart rule. So here's a graphical view of smart rule logic. So we're going to start over on the left-hand side. We're keying in some data. In the pre-commit, we are keying in our AP bill. We put in our bill total at the top. We're keying in our line items. We think we've got it right, and we're going to hit save or post. We're going to hit post in the system. That hitting post is going to be the trigger. That's our event that's going to AP bill. It's then going to check the condition, and our condition is going to say that our distribution total equals our bill total. If it's true, proceed with the operation, add, modify, or delete the record. In our case, add the AP bill. If it's false, then display the error message or the warning message and prevent the posting from taking place. Now, again, with a warning, it's kind of like getting, I guess, a warning from a police officer. It's a little bit scary. It's going to make you stop in your tracks for a minute, but he is going to let you go, right? And you get the warning, and you can continue on with the transaction that you're posting. All right. So there's two ways to get to the area where you would create the smart rules and the smart events. And that really is based on what your subscription is like in Sage Intacct. Let's say, for example, that you do have platform services. Looking at the list of folks that are in the meeting the webinar here, we do have a couple of platform services subscribers. If you're in platform services, you're actually able to go to the area, the bills area, for example, and you can click on object definition. And that's a really, what's nice about that is it's a really straightforward way to get into the area in which you want to make your smart rule or event customization, your change. You don't have to click in different areas of the system and then come back and find what you're looking for, etc. You can go to that area and then you can click on the object definition and it'll take you straight into where you want to be. It's a shortcut, so to speak. In here, so at this point now, we're inside of platform services in the accounts payable bill object definition. You can see that in step 3, we can click on Smart Rule. That's just a jump link, URL link, however. So if you want to scroll down the page, you see there in number 4 where it says New Smart Rule, and you can kind of go into there and kick off the process. As well as you see under that, there's a new Smart Event as well. And we haven't really talked about Smart Events. A Smart Event is essentially a trigger point, okay? Smart events by themselves aren't really, well, let me take that back. Smart events by themselves can do different things than smart rules. Smart events can make things happen inside the system. Now, it's a limited subset of things that can happen, for lack of a more technical term. But you do have the ability with a smart event to make some things happen within the Sage Intacct system, whereas a smart rule is really simply validating data that you have already put into the system. A smart event, for example, could be set to populate another field based off of a field's value when a record is saved, something of that nature. They're still not really meant to be terribly programmatic, and you don't want to get too complicated with them. But Sage Intacct does give you the ability to use either of these inside the system through mostly wizard-driven type setup values, which is more than a lot of accounting software solutions will give you. So if you have customization services, which means you are not subscribed to the platform, which is the vast majority of the folks that are on the webinar, and probably a vast majority of the folks that have the Sage Intacct solution, you have customization services. And really the easiest way to tell on this is if you're in the Sage Intacct solution and you go up to your menu bar, or now with the new interface, you go to the menu bar in the upper left and you click the drop down. Do you see customization services or do you see platform services? If you're in the old interface, of course, it runs across the top. And by the way, if you are in the old interface, it's about that time to get into the new one. It's not too far down the path now before they begin to put everybody into the new one, period. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that new interface and really try to work in it, I would encourage you to do so. Truthfully, I just started really hammering on the new interface and working in that pretty much exclusively about 3 months ago. So if you haven't, you're not too far behind, but now is time. So back to the smart rules though, if you're in and you have customization services, I should say, then you will see a link for smart rules underneath the customization services area. So here's your smart rules here. Click on the plus, and then when you come inside the smart rules area, this is where you then pick AP bill, inventory item, screen, project screen, whatever it may be. You know, again, it's the difference in being able to start at the object if you have platform services. So go to AP bills and then go into the object definition and create a rule. If you have customization services, you tell it you want to create a rule and then you pick the object. And I'm pointing to my screen here, so I hope you guys can see that. Of course, you can't. Smart rule type, that's a pretty simple choice. And again, a lot of what Sage Intacct does is give you wizard-driven tools to be able to create these things. So a majority of what you're looking at inside creating a smart rule in Sage Intacct is going to be wizard-driven. There's not going to be a terrible amount of code in here. So it's going to give you the ability to create these as a finance person. And even in areas where there is code in this, there are code dictionaries and things of that nature that can help you understand and know what field names to use, what values to use, how to do comparisons and things of that nature. So it's still not a true coding atmosphere. Okay. So for errors, again, if the error, if it comes back and you have, if the data validation comes back and it fails and you have it set to be an error, then the record that you are trying to change or add will not be committed to the system because it is an error. If you pick a warning, then you will be given the opportunity to say, yes, I know this doesn't adhere to what I'm doing, but I would like to save it anyway, and let me continue. For both of these, the message text that you put in here will be displayed on the screen. So with Smart Rule events, the triggers for the evaluation, again, you can either do add, set, or delete. Add is adding a new record. Obviously, set you can think of as updated. It's when an existing record is about to be modified. And then, of course, you know what delete means. So you've got add. I prefer the term modify. Add, modify, and delete. Intacct uses the word set, though. So set is equivalent to modify. Okay. Now, you don't have to pick just one. You can say anytime a new AP bill is added or updated, I want to check the bill total and the distributions total. So you don't have to pick just one. You can say anytime a customer is added, I want to check to make sure that the city field is not left empty in the record. Add, update, either one of those. Delete, you may want to run some checks on that. I can see that one being separate from the others in a good number of cases. Smart rule condition, right? Basically, this is going to come out to a yay or a nay. Now, this is the place where you get into wanting to or needing to do some quasi-code. Now, it could be something as simple as saying, field name bill total equals field name, which, you wouldn't use the word equals, maybe the equal sign, equals distribution total. It may be customer's city field is not empty type thing, is not null, something like that. So they could be very simple conditions. They could be complex conditions. Anything that you can do with equals, greater than, less than, data from records, other records included with that, different types of merge fields, Boolean operators, parentheses for grouping, ands and ors expressions, things of that nature. You can check to see if it's this or that before proceeding. So you've got a great deal of flexibility in here. And one of the things that we would help you do, and I'm happy to send this out ahead of time, or if you want to talk about it when the need arises, there are some little sort of dictionary type areas where we can point you to that will give you anything from some of the more common field names to some of the more common methodologies for the equals, greater thans, less thans, all the different types of calculations that you can do and you can keep those handy, and that will help with the condition area here. But this is the area where you get into more code than in any other place. You know, the rest of it is pretty much click some fields, drag and drop, type some values, you know, something of that nature. It's not terribly programmatic, right? So do keep in mind that this is a validation rule. The action for the validation rule is to display a message. If it fails, then you're going to either invoke the warning or the error based on what you chose for the type. But when it succeeds, then nothing is going to happen. Okay, so keep that in mind. It is a validation rule inside the system. It's going to check what you tell it to check in here, and then it's going to act appropriately. Okay. Certain characters are illegal in conditions, so you can't use $ and you can't use semicolons. Right? And that's a note. The semicolon is more interesting than the $. I would say semicolons are used in a lot of different coding languages, so that's kind of one to be a little bit more aware of if you're transitioning from some other language into trying to put it together inside of a smart rule. We've had folks put those semicolons in the past, and it always is a problem. Okay. So here's some comparison operators. So if you wanted to say bill total is equal to distributions total, you would say bill total, you know, whatever the field name of that is, and then 2 equal signs and distribution total. For not equal, you've actually got 2 choices, and then you can see greater than, less than, along with the or equals down under it. Those are pretty self-explanatory. The important one there to note, the different one, I should say, to note is the equal, and it's actually 2 equal signs, not just 1. Parentheses, you can use parentheses to control the order of evaluation. And then also here you've got some different operators for ands and ors. And then there's, down at the bottom, there's an exclusive or. And to be perfectly blunt, I am not sure what a ternary operator is. I honestly meant to Google that. Let me see if there's anything listed in the notes here. So it says that it can do value comparisons. So for example, if you say the invoice amount due is less than 5,000, you can choose from the terms small and large. So if it's less than 5,000, it would return a value of small. If it's greater than 5,000, it returned the value of large. So you could have a validation to where something is, you know, equivalent to small, or something is equivalent to large, or, you know, perhaps some other choices in the system. But it allows you to translate from a greater than, less than into some other type of value, and perhaps you pass that into another. Perhaps this is just a subset within a smart rule check, and you pass that to another value in the smart rule in order to do the actual data validation. So that's pretty cool. I had not heard of ternary operation until started going through these slides. Smart rule math operators. These are traditional. Okay? Nothing really groundbreaking, earth-shattering there. String helper functions. The dot operator is used to concatenate strings. Right. So if you have 2 string fields that you want to put together for validation, you can use that dot there. as well as if you're trying to go from a form name down to a field, you may see AR underscore invoice dot date, for example. And then here's a few things where we're converting string fields, pulling out substring information, pulling out the length of a string as well, searching for values within a string field. So these are all different types of functions that you can use in string fields. So here, for example, you could say where the customer has a certain, if the customer is within a certain street, or perhaps if you're tracking geographical locations and maybe you're tracking neighborhoods or something of that nature within the Sage Intacct system, and you wanted to validate a customer's address within a certain neighborhood, you might do some searching within, say, the street name, and return those street names to be sure that you are in line with the correct areas within the geography. Okay. Some different functions here with math helpers. There's maximum, minimums, rounds. Okay. These will help you. Date helpers, if you want to return today's date, time of day, year, month, day, weekday. Let's say you want to do a comparison on any transactions that you're entering to say that the date that you're entering in for the GL date is within the current month and current year. Or let's say it's within 30 days of today, or something of that nature. You would be able to go in and do those comparisons using these date helper functions. You know, give you a warning message if the year that you're posting this transaction with, as far as the AP bill date, is not in the current year, and maybe turn that off in January, or turn it off for the first 2 weeks of January, or something like that. Or maybe make it a warning and just deal with it that way, as being a reminder, but let you pass through for that first part of the year, right? So you could put these date helper functions in place to make sure that the dates that you're keying these into, nobody fat fingers and keys, you know, an incorrect date. Also, I would think very helpful at the beginning of the year to kind of help you make sure that you're getting transactions in the right period. And then we get to the message to display if the smart rule condition is false. And remember, you don't get a message if the smart rule condition is true. So if the AP bill totals match, if the AP bill invoice date is within 45 days of today's date, you don't get an error message. It simply lets you continue with the transaction. If it's not, then you have up to 500 characters, which is a good amount, right? Hey, are you sure you're posting this into the right period? Warning, the bill total does not match the distributions total. You know, come back to see us, something of that nature. Get a message in there within 500 characters that gives them something to look at within the system. And remember, each of these is its own smart rule. So a smart rule is not going to check the date and check the dollar amount, or shouldn't check the date and the dollar amount at the same time. It's going to do one or the other. You may have multiple smart rules on the AP bill screen, for example. They each will fire, but as long as, let's say, the date's within 45 days and the totals match, nothing comes up on the screen. Okay. Merge fields. Merge fields are references to record values and system values. Merge field references are replaced with the values as the first step. So for example, the AR invoice dot customer name. So this is where I was saying in a merge field, Essentially, think of it as you're doing a mail merge inside of Microsoft Word to create address envelopes for your daughter's birthday party, and you're going to send out invitations to her birthday party, right? You create those, but you may have friend first name, friend last name, friend address line, friend city, friend state, friend zip. That's essentially what you have here, because when you do that merge in Word, it's going to translate all of that, and it's going to say Philip Massey, 1100 Lager Court, Raleigh, NC, 27609. Sorry, forgot my own zip code. So it's going to merge those values. So the same thing inside the smart rule is if you put in AP bill dot display total equal AP bill dot distribution total, then it's going to translate that to say 1500 equal 1500, and everything's going to be good, or 1505 equal 1550, and hey, wait, that's a problem. They don't equal. We failed the validation. Throw up the error message. So these merge fields are available in the system, and like I said, there's a way to get to these. We can show you how to get to these if you want us to, send something out ahead of time. We're happy to, or if you want to come to us when you want to do that first smart rule, which I would advise, because if you do the smart rules wrong, you can kind of get into a bit of an endless loop with them, or at least get frustrated with it. So, take that first one, let us help you with it, making the offer for anybody who's here that we will help you with it at no charge, unless you're creating a huge masterful one that's doing some kind of gigantic programming with it, which you generally don't do, but we certainly will help you. Okay. So here's some universal merge fields. These are going to be ones that could apply to every single smart rule. So you could say, for example, if the user ID userprofile.login is equivalent to Philip, then throw up an error message and saying you don't have any business posting in this system anyway. What in the world are you doing? Get out of here, go away, right? You can do something like that. Or you can use where the user profile email equals the vendor email. Don't let them post their own transactions, kind of thing. So there's some things like that you could do with these universal merge fields as well. Universal objects, very similar. User information, company information, current user, current company, and user profile. So, here again, you could do some things perhaps with the current user and validations against who the current user is. And the first thing that comes to my mind is just to say, check some type of check with the current user that's set up in the system, and don't let them enter in AP bills for themselves. Validate the email addresses or something of that nature, and don't let them enter their own email addresses or AP bills in the system, right? Something you could do. So here's the catalog, and actually this is the catalog that I was going to show you. I forgot that we had this added this slide in here. So here is the actual catalog. And what you'll see if you go to customization services and then view catalog, and if you have platform, you can still get to the catalog in a very similar manner. But what you're looking at here is AP bill items, AP payment requests, AR invoices, for example. And if you click here on the blue arrow, you open up the AR invoice, and underneath it you see the fields. So this is where in our merge fields, let me go back, where you have, for example, user profile dot session ID. In this case, you would have AR invoice dot total paid, AR invoice dot description, total selected, total due, etc. The nice thing about this catalog is that it does update with custom fields. So when you go to the AP bill screen and you add that bill total field, you'll be able to come back here to your field list and see the bill total, and then you'll know what value that you should use for that custom field as well. So you would have, AP bill dot bill total equal AP bill dot distribution total, or whatever the name of that field is down at the bottom. Okay. So you can expand them, you can collapse them, and then the merge field name is the combination of AR invoice, for example, and PR batch. AR invoice dot PR batch. Okay. So some smart rule tips and tricks here to kind of wrap things up. Set the event type to warn when creating and testing the smart rule. Change it to error only after it's fully tested and performing as needed. Great idea, great tip. And essentially what that does for you is give you the ability to put it out there in place, but for people to say, no, that's not exactly what we were looking for, but it's going to let me continue with my transaction, despite perhaps that, I'm putting in what I should, but the smart rule isn't checking the right logic. When writing the condition logic for the smart rule, initially focus on the easiest way to construct the logic and don't worry about the return value, right? So we want to start out with this simplistically. We want to look at this from a standpoint of what's the easiest way that we can get this into the system and not try to start with something elaborate. So, again, one of the things you may want to experiment with a smart rule is give me a warning. Start with something simple. Give me a warning if I add a customer that's not in the state of North Carolina. Have it pop up a box that says, this customer is not in the state of North Carolina. Do you want to proceed? Right? That's something that's very simplistic. Now, if you're adding 100 customers a day, please don't do that because that's going to be a lot of additional boxes to check. But, you may pick something similar to that. If your logic results true when the data is bad, invert the logic by adding the exclamation point and the parenthesis around your logic statement. That will invert it to say that, give me the opposite of what I have inside the parentheses. If you're not sure what the merge field resolves to, put it in the error message body to see the value. That is a fantastic tip there. So if you're having a lot of problems with creating a smart rule and it's just not firing the way that you think it should, take that merge field value, stick it in the error message, and then when you process your transaction, add your record, add your value, and you get the warning message, it'll do the merge field. So you can use merge fields in your text message results that display on the screen, your error message. You can say, this customer is not in the state of North Carolina. Are you sure you want to add it? So then if you're putting it in and it says this customer is not in the state of Mississippi, or this customer is not in the state of 27609, you've got the wrong thing set up in the system. So that's a great way to check your data. And then format dates in the smart rules as year, month, day, right? So it gives you an example there. Instead of even doing 12/25/2014, do the 2014.12.25. That's the way that Sage Intacct wants to see those dates. Okay. Use them judiciously. Use them when validation is truly critical. Use them when business rules encoded in the smart rule are not subject to frequent change. Right? So you don't want to go in and say, check my vendors to make sure that they've got a 2018 date on them, or that they were entered in, they have something saying they were entered in June or July or something of that nature, because that's going to change. Use them in cases of the AP bill. Use them in cases where you're trying to validate data that isn't going to change on a regular basis. You've got true, clearly definable business rules and the things that you really want to adhere to. An overabundance of smart rules can lead to maintenance headaches. I would say an overabundance of smart rules, in addition to maintenance headaches, can lead to frustrated users. If you're putting a lot of smart rules into the system and you're checking a lot of things, if those things are valid and critical to your business, then by all means do it. You've got these things that are critical to your business, and there are things that just have to happen this way. That's fine. But if they're not critical to the business and you've got 20 smart rules that fire based on saving new customers or new vendors or entering invoices into the system, sales or AP, then people may get frustrated if there's a lot of these out there that are just curiosity checks as opposed to critical checks. You can suspend a smart rule, just make it inactive. You don't have to delete it. And then if anybody wants a copy of this spreadsheet, in fact, Yelena, let's make sure that we send out a copy of this spreadsheet to everyone that attended the meeting so that they can see it. And if you are watching this recorded, just send an email to info@masseyconsulting.net and we'll send you a copy of the spreadsheet as well. Okay. All right, so questions. Did we have any questions come up? I didn't see any, but I don't know if, Yellen, if you saw any or if we want to give folks a minute to punch in any questions they may have.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything right now, but we'll give it a few seconds here. And I was just going to let everybody know that this was recorded, so you should get a follow-up email within 24 hours of the recording, and we'll send out the slides. And then like Philip said, if you have any specific questions, just email support@Massey or info@Massey Consulting, and we'll get that taken care of. But everyone will get a copy of all of this.
Okay. So what I'm going to do at this point, and I'm still, here we have a question. I was going to say, if you have questions, still put them in. I am, for some reason, not able to click on the question. That's weird.
It says, what are the smart link clicks and fetches?
Smart link clicks and fetches. A smart link is something that you can put into Sage Intacct that would link out to another object. So let's say, for example, you wanted to create a smart link that would take someone out to a currency exchange website. You want to create a smart link that would take someone out to a vendor website. And with the smart links, you have some capabilities of being able to dynamically change those smart links. So if a vendor, for example, has a predefined tag to put into a URL, then you can utilize that within the smart link to vary the vendor website that you go to. So they can take you out. And a smart fetch, I honestly would have to call on a colleague for that one. I am not 100% familiar. I apologize with the smart fetches, but I do believe that's very similar. That gives you the capability to grab some data. I'm just not sure what any limitations would be on that capability. But we can follow up and send everybody who's on the call a clear definition of what a smart fetch is.
Okay. Not seeing anything else. Just so everybody knows, our next webinar will be on the 3rd Sage Intacct release, which is coming out August 18th, 17th, excuse me, Friday, August 17th, and we'll have the webinar the following week on the 21st. And there will be reminder emails on that. So Okay, Philip, I don't see anything else coming in, so I hope everybody has a great rest of your week, and we will send you this information. And again, don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Ella. Thanks everyone for participating, and please do attend the one on the 21st, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.